Jessica wasn't rich. Not even close. She lived with her grandmother in a modest apartment on the edge of the city, worked long shifts at a local bakery, and wore clothes she'd altered herself. But none of that showed on her social media profile. Instead, her feed gleamed with rented luxury. Designer bags borrowed from a friend who worked in PR, coffee dates at expensive cafes she photographed but rarely afforded, and elegant outfits staged for just the right angle. In her photos, she looked like the kind of girl who lived in penthouses and dined at rooftops. The kind of girl someone like him would notice. Theo. She'd followed him for months. A writer, literature teacher, and book influencer with a poetic soul and unruly hair. Theo posted quotes about authenticity and love. He seemed deep, real, and completely unattainable. But she was addicted to his words. They felt like tiny lifelines. One day, on a whim both reckless and brave, she replied to one of his stories. Something about vulnerability. She wrote, "Maybe we hide because we don't think we're worth being seen." He replied, and just like that, the first thread was woven. They started talking daily. Their messages moved from casual to confessional. He told her about his dreams of publishing a novel, about his fear of never being enough. She told him half-truths, about gallery openings and charity events. She painted herself into the version of Jessica she thought he'd love. And he did love her, or seemed to be falling for her. And Jessica, she was falling too. But not as the woman in her pictures. As the real her, the one he didn't know yet. Each day the weight of the lie grew heavier. But each message from Theo made it harder to come clean. She was living a double life. One full of curated beauty, and another full of sincere longing. Could love survive if it bloomed from a seed of fiction? Or would the truth, once revealed, scorch it all? They agreed to meet. Theo had suggested a cozy book cafe downtown, where indie jazz played low and the scent of roasted beans wrapped around every word. Jessica almost said no, panic rising in her chest, but something in his voice had steadied her. "I just want to see you." The you behind the screen. So she chose a simple dress. No designer logos, no borrowed accessories. Just her. For the first time, she walked into a place not as a character, but as Jessica. And there he was. Theo sat at a window seat, thumbing through a worn copy of Neruda. He looked up, saw her, and smiled, like the sun rising over the page. No hesitation. No confusion. "Hi," he said, standing. She expected him to notice, to ask why she didn't look like her filtered photos. But he didn't. He simply pulled out her chair. They talked for hours. Laughed about bad poetry, debated favorite authors, shared stories of childhood wounds. He spoke with a gentle honesty that made her forget the world outside. Jessica felt something crack open in her chest, something long frozen. But the lie lingered, coiled like a snake at the edge of her happiness. She almost told him, almost confessed that she wasn't who she had pretended to be. But then he said, "You're exactly who I hoped you'd be." And her heart betrayed her courage. She stayed silent. That night, walking home in the rain, Jessica felt both alive and ashamed. He had fallen for her voice, her thoughts, her heart, but wrapped in a disguise. She wondered, when the costume came off, would the love remain? Or was she only lovable in fiction? The days after their meeting were wrapped in a new kind of warmth. Jessica and Theo continued talking, but now nothing was filtered, nothing rehearsed. There were no staged photos, no glamorous angles, only reality. And surprisingly, it was more beautiful than any fantasy they had lived before. They took slow walks through the city park, sometimes sharing ice cream, sometimes just silence. They read to each other under trees. Him quoting Neruda, her laughing at the drama of it all. They visited second-hand bookstores and antique markets, collecting moments instead of impressions. Jessica found herself smiling at nothing, catching her reflection in a mirror and seeing not perfection but peace. Still doubts crept in. One night, while lying in bed, she wondered if what they were building could survive the weight of their past lies. Could something real grow from something that started as fiction? Or was it doomed from the beginning? Theo, too, wrestled with fears. He wasn't the ideal man on paper. He lived humbly, had debts, and dreams that didn't pay bills. What if Jessica woke up one day and decided she wanted more? Someone who could offer her the world instead of second-hand poetry and a one-bedroom apartment. But neither said it out loud. Instead, they held hands tighter, laughed louder, clung to every good moment as if it were the answer. Then came the complication. One evening, while dining at a quiet bistro, a woman approached their table. She was tall, elegant, familiar. Jessica recognized her immediately. It was one of the real influencers from whom she had borrowed photos months ago. Her eyes locked on Jessica with a flash of confusion and recognition. Theo noticed the tension. The woman didn't say anything cruel. She simply said, "I think I've seen you on my account," with a thin smile, and walked away. Jessica's heart crumbled. Theo didn't say a word. The silence stretched between them like a canyon. Later that night, in his apartment, Jessica broke down. "I'm sorry," she sobbed. "I thought I was just invisible. I didn't think it would matter. I just wanted someone to see me, not ignore me." Theo took a long breath. Then, without judgment, he said something that melted her. "I saw you, not the photos. I saw you in every sentence, every song, every silence. And that's what I fell for." But the moment had stirred something deeper. They both realized love couldn't grow over unspoken truths. So they decided to do something neither expected. Take a break. Not to run, but to find themselves separately. To heal the parts that still needed light. To let the truth not just connect them but ground them. And with tears, hugs, and a promise, they parted for a while. Not with goodbye, but with hope. Time passed, not too much but just enough. Jessica focused on her grandmother, on real friendships, on writing again. She stopped posting fake photos. In fact, she stopped posting at all for a while. She started journaling about who she really was and what she truly wanted. Her life was quiet, but it was hers. She started volunteering at a youth center on weekends, reading stories to children, and sharing her journey with teenage girls who struggled with self-image. She didn't need likes anymore. She had something better, meaning. Jessica began to see beauty in chipped mugs and worn blankets. She took long walks without needing to document them. She laughed with her grandmother over old sitcoms, cried at books she once skimmed, and learned to be gentle with her own reflection. She no longer chased the world. She let it come to her, slowly, honestly. Theo, on his part, immersed himself in his teaching. He introduced a new unit in his literature class, Truth in Fiction. He told his students that the most powerful stories weren't the ones that dazzled, but the ones that revealed, the ones that dared to be flawed. He stopped curating his online presence and began sharing behind-the-scenes glimpses. The coffee spills on manuscripts, the rewrites, the quiet mornings spent rereading Baldwin or Rilke. His following didn't explode, but it deepened. His inbox filled with real messages, not just reactions. And every night before bed, he still thought of her. Then one morning, Jessica found an envelope at her doorstep. Inside was a handwritten note. "There's a park bench under the old willow tree where I once read you Neruda. If you're still the girl who smiled at my bad Spanish accent, I'll be waiting there on Sunday at 4 p.m. Theo." Her heart leapt. She reread the note a dozen times, folded it gently like a secret prayer. That Sunday, she didn't try to become anyone. She wore no makeup, just her softest sweater and a single daisy in her hair. She didn't rehearse a speech. She didn't check her angles in the mirror. She simply walked. The park was golden with afternoon light. Children ran barefoot. An old man fed pigeons from a cracked paper bag. And there, under the willow, as if stitched into time, was Theo. He stood as she approached, eyes wide with a softness that made her knees weak. His breath caught, not at her beauty but at her presence, real, unfiltered. Jessica. They didn't speak at first. They just embraced. Long healing. Oh. Then Theo whispered, "Let's start again. As us." Jessica smiled, her eyes brimming with tears but no fear. No edits. No mask. Just us. He nodded and took her hand, not as someone perfect, but as someone brave enough to be seen. They walked together, slow and steady, like the rhythm of a new song being written. Not into a perfect life, but into an honest one. Built not on illusions, but on truth. Not on fantasy, but on courage. They knew it wouldn't be easy. There would be doubts, days of silence, and shadows from the past. But now they had something stronger than perfection. They had presence. They had choice. And in a world obsessed with image, where love is often staged and souls are filtered out of view, they had found the rarest thing of all. A love that didn't need to pretend. A love that began again. Not in fiction but in truth. And this time the truth was enough.